Hello, hey there, and how's it going, everyone? I hope you guys are having a wonderful day so far. For this video, I know this one's going to be a little bit more larger than I've originally anticipated, but regardless of that, I'm going to try my best to power through it as quickly as possible. Excuse me. Um, so right off the bat, uh, I've created two different projects, but they're pretty much the same. They're both the grass animation project, but I've used two different techniques for them just to try to implement a method that I've liked the most. But unfortunately, neither one of them I don't really like too much. But I'll say that I did a pretty good job implementing those two separate methods. But let's try to go through a play by play of what I've done. So right off the bat, this is pretty much goes for both the projects. I've created a two-dimensional plane, and then I've created uh, like hair particles that are like on top of the two-dimensional plane, and it lays over top of it. And then of course I did whatever I did that was necessary to create a grass shape of blades. Like I try to make it look grass like pretty much. That's that's literally just the gist of it, and that goes for both of the projects. Uh, but for specifically this one, I've added slightly more detail compared to the other one. For this one, I've gave it a gradient, an animated gradient texture onto it. So the grass itself, the majority of it would seem darker, and then it would change colors throughout the entire video. Like some parts would be dark green, and then it goes to like a yellowish type color within this area, and then it goes back to being dark. Yeah, that's pretty much one of the techniques I've used onto it on that specific project, and then I've stacked it on top of a force field modifier that is technically a it's a turbulence force field. That's pretty much what it's called, and it would distort all particle effects, hair, or even like normal particles itself. It would just distort it and throw it all over the place in a random pattern. And as you can see, like right off the bat, you will see it like take effect, but then it goes into this familiar pattern that you'll see, and it kind of go into this zigzag pattern, and it goes towards the camera. I saw that, and after realizing that it's doing that little pattern, I found it to be very interesting, but unfortunately, it's way too subtle. It's way too subtle. If you're looking at it at a glance, you wouldn't even notice unless you're staring directly at it. And I didn't like that too much, so I wanted to try something a little bit more extreme. Uh, so right now you're kind of looking at this other project that I worked on. It's not as flashy as the other one, but I completely had to like ignore the first part that I did, which was adding a gradient texture, like animated gradient texture onto it, simply because if I had both of these things working at the same time, it would just slow my PC down, and it would have taken me a little longer to finish. So basically, same thing. Create grass. That's pretty much it. And I've gathered a wind force field, and I've pretty much got into the shape that I needed, and then I've got it into like I gave it the exact properties that I needed to make it seem like there's wind blowing, but I had to make sure that it wasn't too soft, it wasn't too strong, or it wasn't too big or too big or too small. I needed to be at that perfect size, and then pretty much all I did, I duplicated it over and over again so it would seem like it's like a gust of wind, like a gust of wind shape Because if you look, because wind is not like a solid path. It isn't a solid. It's pretty much broken. Pretty much, it's like broken to like smaller little bits. So it's not like a giant ring of wind. That's not how air pretty much functions. Let's see. Another thing that I've done for it, actually, for this, I've seen a YouTube video about it, and I'm going to be leaving a description at the very bottom within this video, going straight to the video. But uh, it's super simple technique, but it's absolutely genius. It's so genius that it's like, wow, how come I've never? It's so simple. Like, all you do, you create the wind, and you place them exactly how you need it to, and then afterwards, you'll create an empty, which is like this, literally a object that doesn't really take up space or anything. It's literally just an empty, and that's literally what's called. It's an empty. You create this empty, and then you place it off in the distance, away from the scene, and then what you do, you'll parent the wind to the empty, and parenting in Blender is pretty much joining two things together without having to like mesh them together. So it's like it's like an invisible link. If you attach one thing to another and you move one object, the other object would move along with it if you allow it to do so. So that's pretty much what happened. Uh, we create the empty, we create the wind, and then once you parent both of them together, and all you have to do is just move the empty in the grid and push it in a direction that you'll need to, and then everything else will just follow its path along with it, and then bam, just like that, you created a giant gust of wind. Unfortunately, within the second one, it doesn't look as good, but I pretty much got it to exactly how I wanted to. Uh, I really could have done a better job, but I was just pretty much happy that, excuse me, I was just pretty much happy that I've managed to implement the method. It does go a little deeper within it, but through what I was planning on doing, I necessarily didn't find a need to take those extra steps for it, simply because I honestly just didn't need it. But I'm still going to be linking the video in the description because I just can't take the credit for it. It's so simple, but it's genius. Honestly, I can't believe that I've never thought of doing that technique of creating like a wind force field and taking an empty and then parenting together, and then you could just move both of them at the same time just by moving one object. It's so genius. It's so genius. But that's pretty much all I really have to say. This video is pretty much almost about to hit 10 minutes. I'm trying to get this done as quickly as possible. Well, anyways, I'm glad that you guys decided to stop by, check it out. Unfortunately, the video is a bit sloppy, but hey, I'm just throwing this all together just so I can quickly work on something far larger, honestly. And not only that, I want to also remind you guys that I have a third video that it's going to be coming out as well, and you don't want to miss that. You really don't want to miss that. It's super clean, but I can't spoil it. I cannot spoil it, but it's super clean. But anyways, that's all. Thank you guys for coming by. Uh, that's pretty much it. Dubstep Boy out. Bye bye.